Another interesting day in the Karen Reed trial, day number 11. Today was only a half day, but still we got through a number of witnesses. Caitlin Albert's testimony finished. We also then heard from Tristin Morris, Caitlin's boyfriend, and then we heard from Sarah Levinson and Julie Nagel, both friends of Brian Albert Jr., who were celebrating together his birthday at his house, not like the group who went out to celebrate his birthday not with him, but these are actually friends of his that came to his house to celebrate. So first we got to hear from Caitlin Albert. Caitlin Albert's testimony really started on day 10 yesterday, but today was for most of the cross-examination. And here, the cross-examination began trying to show a connection between Caitlin Albert and Katie McLaughlin. And we saw from earlier on in the trial when Katie McLaughlin took the stand that also the defense was trying to show how close Katie McLaughlin is with Caitlin Albert, and now again they're trying to show that you really are friends here, which would show that maybe you're trying to stick up for them or protect them or cover for them, lie for them perhaps, that type of thing. So that's the first thing Yannetti tries to bring out. He says you're friends with Katie McLaughlin. You went together. You were together at a baby shower. You took a road trip to Maine. And remember that Katie McLaughlin said that they never took a road trip together. Her testimony was that maybe they went to the beach together with some mutual friends, but they never actually took a road trip together. So they were excited that they found some evidence that actually shows that they did take a road trip together. However, it's not just them two. It was with a group of friends. So that seems to be the testimony coming out, that they shared a network of friends, and some people were better friends with others, and didn't seem that Katie McLaughlin was such good friends with Caitlin Albert. They shared mutual friends. But nevertheless, he did bring out that they do have some pictures together at a beach. They have together at a baby shower, and they also have some pictures together in Maine. And then there was an objection about being together in a hot tub. But you see that there is some sort of relationship, some sort of friendship that they have together. Now, something interesting that came out is actually a little bit comical. If you take a look in the beginning of today's testimony, you'll find this a little comical, that what happens sometimes when you have a witness on the stand and the witness is trying to inject additional information to not answer your question exactly how you're asking it, but they're trying, because as the attorney, you're trying to paint a certain picture and the witness doesn't want you to paint that picture. So therefore, they inject extra information that you're not even asking for. And this is what happened here. So Yannetti was trying to show that there's a friendship between Caitlin Albert and Katie McLaughlin, and he kept showing, well, you were together at this place, you were together at that place, and she kept responding, yeah, but there were other friends there, and we share mutual friends. She kept trying to inject that there's other friends that were part of these outings. And at some point, Yannetti kept saying, oh, yeah, well, of course, sure. I mean, yeah, you were with other friends. And so anytime that he would say, now, you were with Katie McLaughlin, right? And she would say, yes, with other friends. He's like, yeah, well, of course, you're with other friends. So at some point, the judge just got enough of it, and the judge said, okay, Miss Yannetti, you're going to have to stop with the of course. And his response to the judge was, of course, Your Honor. So it did not seem planned. Yannetti didn't think like, oh, I'm going to answer the judge to make it funny. It seemed like just his natural answer, but it did come out, I think, a little comical, so everybody had a good laugh. All right, so continuing on with the cross-examination of Caitlin Albert. So there was there were some pictures of Katie McLaughlin with some college roommates that Caitlin Albert had. There's a picture of her on her track team, so they were on the same track team together. Okay, so there's some sort of connection between Caitlin Albert and Katie McLaughlin. Continuing on, Brian Higgins and her father, Brian Albert. He asked her, were they ever out of your field of vision? And she answered that no, they were always in her field of vision, except the one time where he went to get the dog. But in the cross-examination, it seemed to be that she always saw them together and that they never were out of her field of vision. And on redirect, actually, the prosecutor rehabilitated this part of the testimony and got her to say, oh, no, they were gone for a few minutes. And maybe that was that 5 minutes that there's already been previous testimony that Brian Higgins and Brian Albert went up to Jack Albert's room to look at some of the marine paraphernalia that he had, or some pictures, and that's what they were looking at together for a few minutes. All right, now this is where it gets a little interesting. Okay, her boyfriend, Tristin Morris, right, he was the one that he was together with Caitlin Albert at the waterfall, And then he left early. And the reason why he left early is that he had to wake up early to plow. That was another one of his jobs. So this was an odd job that he did. He plowed. So he had to get up early because there was a blizzard coming through. So he had to make sure that whoever he was working for, whoever paid to have plowing done, that he was one of the plowers that would come and plow whatever it was. Parking lot, driveway, sidewalk, whatever it was. Now, so he left the waterfall early because he needed to get some sleep. He was going to wake up 3 o'clock in the morning. So Caitlin Albert stayed at the waterfall with the other Alberts and the McCabe's, and she hung out there and then eventually went to 34 Fairview. And what happened then is that Caitlin Albert, by the previous testimony, was the last one to leave Brian and Nicole Albert's home. The home at 34 Fairview, she was the last one to leave. And who picked her up? Her boyfriend, Tristin Morris. So that seems a little interesting. If he is supposed to be leaving the waterfall early so that he can go to sleep, why would she be texting him saying, hey, I need a ride home, wake up, or calling him? If you know that this is the only few hours that he gets to sleep, why would you be bothering him to wake him up and come get you? Now, also something interesting that came out was that Yannetti asked Caitlin Albert on the stand, he asked her, how far of a drive is it from where you stay, I think it was in Easton, to Canton? How far of a drive is that? And her answer was interesting. Her answer was about 18 to 19 minutes. Now, who gives estimations like that? It just sounded strange. Like 18 to 19 minutes? Like if I was the attorney, I would say, sure, it's not 20 minutes? Like only 19? What about 19 and 10 seconds? I mean, usually people round to like 15 minutes, 20 minutes. You don't hear so much. That's about an 18-minute drive. Like who talks like that? So I'm not saying there's anything to be learned from it. Just thought it was interesting and funny. All right. Now, Yannetti asked her, was this arrangement that Tristin was going to pick you up whenever you're done hanging out by Brian and Nicole Albert's home on 34 Fairview, was this already arranged beforehand at the waterfall that you're going to text or call him and he's going to come pick it up? And her answer was, we definitely spoke about it. So they definitely spoke about it. Now you'll see that when Tristin Morris is on the stand, he said that they didn't speak about it. And it was not part of the plan. But, of course, his girlfriend of many, many years, his longtime girlfriend, is texting him and calling him to pick her up at 2 o'clock in the morning. That's what he's going to do. Okay. All right, so just another discrepancy there. She also testified that she didn't see anything or hear anything outside of the house at 34 Fairview. And then when she left, she didn't see anything on the front lawn. So she's leaving the house at 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, according to the state's case, John O'Keefe's body is there in the middle of the lawn. And he's a big guy. He's 6'2", over 200 pounds. And he's lying there in the middle of the ground. And by all accounts, it wasn't snowing so much at that point. Maybe some flurries, but it wasn't six inches of snow yet. And she's coming out of the house to go into her boyfriend's car who picked her up. Now, the boyfriend's also sitting there in his car, in the driveway. All he has to do is look to his left, and he'll see a big John O'Keefe lying in the middle of the lawn. But let's first work with Caitlin Albert. So Caitlin Albert says that no, she didn't see anything on the front lawn. But she also added, oh, but I wasn't looking. To which Yannetti said, I didn't ask if you were looking. I just asked you if you noticed anything on the front lawn. But that's just another one of these points where the witness wants to inject a certain part of their testimony, even though it doesn't really answer your question. But he did do a good job of pointing that out to the jury to say, wait, that wasn't the question I asked you, was it? So you're trying to paint, trying to make a certain picture here. You're trying to paint a picture here. All right. All right, so then I redirect. They just reiterated the fact that Brian Higgins and Brian Albert were, number one, yes, they were out of the kitchen for about 5 minutes where she did not know where they were, but it was only 5 minutes at most. And she never even looked at the lawn, and therefore, obviously, she would not notice John O'Keefe's 6'2" frame of a body, 200 pounds a person there. And something that and you're going to be hearing this theme throughout the rest of the testimony. Tristin Morris also said he didn't see anything on the lawn, even though he was outside. Sarah Levinson said she didn't see anything, and Julie Nagel said she didn't see anything either. But they weren't looking. And I think a fair question maybe would have been to ask, do you know what peripheral vision is? And of course, everybody knows what it is, right? You get tested for it at the eye exam. You look straight ahead, but you're still able to see things on the right and left of you. So even if you're not directly looking at something, even if you're looking straight ahead, if you're looking straight down the street, and it's not crazy blizzardy yet, right? It is flurrying. There's snow. You have the windshield wipers on, but you can still see things in your peripheral vision, right? It's pretty basic vision that everybody has. And all these people, even though you're not directly looking at the lawn, but even in your peripheral vision, you didn't notice any of this. All right, so that's just another point that could have been stressed, which wasn't. Okay, not like terrible that they didn't, but I think it could have been explored. All right, then we had Tristin Morris on the stand, and he said that, yes, he did leave the waterfall early because he needed to sleep. He barely got any sleep. Maybe part of the reason is that his girlfriend made sure that he didn't get any sleep because she was texting him and calling him to pick her up. Okay, that's another point. And he said that it was between a 21 and 25-minute drive from Easton to Canton. So where he lived, there's another, he said it was about a 20, 25-minute drive. So it's about around the same time, but it's just interesting hearing how people talk about the times. Now, something else that continually came up in Tristin Morris's cross-examination is that he kept saying he's bad with times. He had no idea about times. If you asked him any time, was it 9 p.m., was it 5 p.m., was it 5? He had no idea what time it is. It could have been 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It would have been the same to him as 2 o'clock in the morning. He had absolutely no clue about anything to do with time, which you could have a good time with on cross-examination, right? One of the things that you can say, wait, so you're telling me as an adult, how old are you? Okay. And you work, right? You have a job, you hold things down. Right. So you have no concept of time, no concept at all of time, of where you are at a specific time. You can't even tell us the difference between 5 p.m. and 2 o'clock in the morning. Is that really your testimony? You're an adult and you have a regular job. Have you ever gotten this condition checked out? Have you ever spoken to a doctor about your problem with recalling specific times? How do you ever take medication? Do you know what time you're supposed to be taking medication? I mean, like you could have had a good time with this that he was refusing to even give an estimate. Sometimes if you want to, okay, fine, don't say 2 a.m. Was it somewhere between 12 a.m. and 2 a.m.? He couldn't even say that. So it reeks. It doesn't smell that great that, I don't remember anything about time. Now I can't even tell you if it's 9 p.m. or 2 a.m. It just something that came out. I think that he did bring it out enough in cross-examination, but certainly it could have been, I think it could have been stressed a little bit more how ridiculous these answers really are, that you can't even give us a close estimation about what time you were at what place. All right. Well, continuing with the cross-examination, he does consider himself part of the McCabe and Albert family. He's that close. He's just been a very long-term boyfriend for Caitlin Albert. So he's really considering himself part of the party, part of the family. And there was a social media post, a social media picture, which was, I guess, posted on social media. And it was posted on June 5th, 2022, which was 4 days before Karen Reed was indicted. And they were having a little party. And the suggestion here by the defense attorney, I think it was Yannetti, it was Yannetti, is that were you out celebrating the indictment of Karen Reed? Which he answered no. All right. He also said that he didn't notice anything on the lawn. Again, we spoke about that. And he said that Trooper Proctor did not even interview him at all, which is strange. And this is a person who was literally right next to officially where the body was, pulling up in the driveway of 34 Fairview. But he did say that someone from the DA's office interviewed him for the first time on May 7th, 2024, which is in the middle of the trial. And then he most importantly said that the plan was not for him to go pick up Caitlin. So this directly contradicts Caitlin's testimony where they definitely, absolutely spoke about it. And here he is saying that no, that was not the plan at all. But of course, if she calls and texts him, then of course he's going to go pick her up. And here's also just one way that the cross-examination concluded is that he was saying, Yannetti was saying to Tristin, that there was no obstruction from where you were parked in the driveway to the front lawn, right? There's nothing blocking your view from where you were sitting in the driveway to the lawn, right? And he answered, correct. And then he said, I wouldn't be staring at her grass. So no, I'm sorry. He didn't answer correct. He answered, I wouldn't be staring at her grass. So no. And again, I don't understand how that answers the question. And it doesn't. And he could have had a little bit, could have stressed this a little bit more. Hold on a second. What did you just say? You said that you wouldn't be looking at her grass. Who's talking about what you would or wouldn't do? I asked you a very simple question. Are you trying to not give me a clear answer? Are you trying to show the jury that you wouldn't be staring at the grass and therefore, what are you trying to say? So I think it could have been just stressed out more that you're obviously trying to be evasive here. You're trying to protect yourself and the Alberts, and you're just not giving me simple answers to simple questions. All right. Now, he did bring out and redirect Mr. Lally. He did bring out that the reason that he went to pick her up, like what's the reason why he's picking her up? Doesn't that seem a little curious? Here's a person who's supposed to be sleeping only a few hours so that he can be rested, and now you're running to pick up Caitlin Albert. Doesn't that sound like something fishy is going on, and that you need to pick her up so that she's away from the scene? What's going on over there? And so therefore, he did want to give an answer to that, and his answer was, or Mr. Lally asked him, what's the reason? And he said, well, she didn't want to be snowed in by her parents. I mean, that would be just terrible if she was snowed in by her own parents, right? I mean, that would just be absolutely terrible. All right, well, whatever. Okay, so that's why she called. Now, we had Sarah Levinson take the stand. Sarah Levinson also, and this is also a consistent theme throughout all the testimonies, that nobody knows how Colin Albert got a ride home that night. Colin Albert was leaving, and I don't think yet, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think yet anyone has testified how Colin Albert got home. And nobody knows how he got home. And if maybe I missed the testimony. If I did, let me know in the comments, but I don't think anyone testified that so far. So remember, Colin Albert was one of the first people to leave, allegedly. She also testified that John O'Keefe and Karen Reed did not come into the house. Now, this is also more important because the further away you get from the Albert family, the more credible the witness is going to be. So even though Sarah Levinson is a good friend of Brian Albert Jr., but to say that every single person is in on this conspiracy and this cover-up, it's just harder. The more people that are involved in the conspiracy, the harder it is. The more you get away from immediate family members of the Albert family, also the harder it is to swallow that all these people were involved in the conspiracy and are all coming willingly, lying under oath with all the penalties that could come with that they're going to be doing this in open court. So here you have Sarah Levinson. Now I understand that she's a good friend of Brian Albert Jr., but still, when you hear from friends, everybody corroborating the same story, it's going to be harder to sell the whole conspiracy theory. So she says also that John O'Keefe and Karen Reed did not come into the house. She did say that she was watching Jennifer McCabe, whose phone was plugged in, and she did occasionally check her phone to see messages or if she's getting missed calls. And she did at one point say, Jennifer McCabe at one point said that someone is going to be coming over to the house, which would seem to be John O'Keefe and Karen Reed. But nobody ever came into the house. So that was that. Now, she also testified that between 1:30 and 2 o'clock in the morning, she left the house. She went to the driveway. That's where the car was. And she was looking at her feet when she walked. And this is very important. This always comes out in all the testimony. Where were you looking when you left that house? Because if they would have just looked for a second to the front lawn, they would have seen a 6'2" police officer who's not buried in snow yet. According to the state's case, all of these people leaving the house should have seen John O'Keefe's body at 2 o'clock in the morning or 1:45 in the morning, whenever they're leaving. But she says no, she was looking straight down at her feet because she knows that it was slippery, and her mother said that she should wear better shoes with traction, and she decided not to because it matched her outfit, and therefore she wanted to not fall because then she would look stupid in front of her mother. So she was looking very closely and carefully at her feet to make sure that she was walking carefully, and she did not, of course, look at the lawn. On cross-examination, Sarah Levinson, Yannetti brought out that Brian Albert Jr. is a close friend of hers, that we know. And she did say in the grand jury hearing that you could see the grass. So she did say that somehow in her peripheral vision, I guess, because she's really officially looking straight down at her feet, in her peripheral vision, she saw that there was not snow sticking to the grass yet. So that's something that she said in her grand jury the grand jury federal grand jury testimony. Another thing is that Matt McCabe, right? Jennifer McCabe and Matt McCabe eventually were the ones who brought home Sarah Levinson and Julie Nagel. Initially, Julie Nagel was going to get a ride home with her brother. I think it was. Yeah, her brother was going to give her a ride home, or her brother and her brother's friend, which we're going to see soon. And she declined the ride from her brother and brother's friend and decided to go home with Matt McCabe and Jennifer McCabe. Now, Matt McCabe actually came into the house and out twice. So he came and picked to pick everybody up, and or they were leaving the house, and Sarah Levinson got into the car. Matt McCabe went back into the house and then back into the car. So he went out, in and out twice, and again, officially, he didn't see anything, and certainly didn't mention it to Sarah Levinson. He also brought out that Michael Proctor only interviewed her 9 months after the incident. This is another theme that we keep hearing about, that Trooper Michael Proctor, did not get around to interviewing any of these people, important witnesses or possible suspects, till months and months later after the murder, which is also a real problem. Another thing that came out was that Sarah Levinson had no problem speaking to the prosecution, speaking to the Commonwealth, speaking to Mr. Lally before the trial, to just hear what she has to say as a witness, but she refused to talk to the defense team. That's what seemed to have come out from her testimony. She did not want to talk to the defense team. And as a witness, you're allowed to talk to anybody you want. So, Yannetti brought that out. That you didn't. We tried to contact you. We want to get to the bottom of this, right? But you refused to talk to us, and that doesn't look good, right? Who are you trying to protect? And on redirect, Mr. Lally asked her, why didn't you want to talk to the defense? And her answer here was interesting. Her answer was, well, first of all, I didn't have to. Okay. You're trying to help here, or you're not trying to help? All right. Nobody has to do a lot of things. But if you're trying to be helpful, then you will speak to them, right? You were one of the people there. Number two, she said, because I had nothing to say. What exactly does that mean? I had nothing to say. You just testified in open court for an hour and a half. You had nothing to say? What are you saying now? Like, yeah, you do have something to say. Talking about your observations of what you saw. So, all right. So, not great answers to why she didn't want to speak to the defense. But that was her answer. All right, moving on to Julie Nagel. So, Julie Nagel testified. She also testified that John O'Keefe and Karen never came into the house. She testified that Brian Albert only went upstairs once to get the dog, Chloe, and to let it out into the backyard, do its business, and then come back in. And Julia, at least, did not testify that Brian Albert went with Brian Higgins to Jack's bedroom to look at pictures. Other than that, she said that she didn't notice that Brian Albert left at all. All right. Now she says that her brother came to pick her up, and he was parked at the end of the driveway. And that's when she did see a black SUV. And this is Karen Reed's car. Allegedly, this is Karen Reed's car sitting there. Now, she texted her boyfriend at 12:15 to pick her up. I'm sorry, not her boyfriend. She texted her brother to pick her up. This is Julie Nagel at 12:15. So sometime after 12:15, her brother came to pick her up. And at that time, that's when she noticed the SUV through the window. She noticed the SUV, and she noticed that the SUV moved up a few times. At one point, it was closer to the driveway by the mailbox, then moved up another few feet, stopped, moved up another few feet, stopped, moved up another few feet, and stopped. And that's what she saw from the window. By the time she came out to the truck, to it wasn't her brother's truck, but it was her brother's friend's truck. So by the time she came out, the SUV wasn't there. So all that she saw out of the window was that SUV there. And then by the time she came out to tell her brother and her brother's friend that she's not interested in the ride, the SUV was gone. And of course, she didn't see anything. So that was interesting. Now, so let's change her story changes a little bit. So initially, she didn't see anything when she came out to tell her brother that she doesn't need a ride. And her testimony was that when she came out, she didn't see that SUV anymore. All right, so that was just interesting. And then finally, when she was getting a ride home with Matt McCabe and Jennifer McCabe, then she said that Jennifer McCabe was turning around. Jennifer McCabe was sitting in the passenger seat, and they're passing by where John O'Keefe's body is supposed to be on the right side. So it would be next to the passenger seat. And if you're sitting behind the passenger seat, if you're looking out your window, you would also see it. But the testimony was that Jennifer McCabe was turning around from the passenger seat towards the middle of the car and looking back at Julie Nagel and Sarah Levinson and talking to them. And therefore, obviously, Jennifer McCabe couldn't have seen anything because she was turned facing the back. And Sarah Levinson and Julie Nagel were talking to her. But all of a sudden, Sarah Levinson says, I think I may have saw something. And then that's what Julie Nagel, I'm sorry, I don't know if I said Sarah Levinson said that. Julie Nagel says, I think I may have seen something. And Sarah said, what, Julie? And then she said, I don't know what it is. And that was the end of the conversation. So interesting conversation. I think I may have seen something. What, when, where, how, what type of thing did you see? I don't know. No point of ever continuing that conversation. I think I may have seen something. What, Julie? I don't know what it is. And that's the end of the conversation. Interesting. And then she was asked, how big was that thing that you think you saw? And she says that it was between 5 and 6 feet long. And at some point, her testimony changed to, I saw a black object. I saw a black object. That's what her testimony changed into. And she also now testified on direct that it was the object was 5 to 6 feet long. So you're passing by this house that you're just hanging out at for the past 8 hours. You see something on the front lawn that's 5 to 6 feet long. And it's something that's there. And it's even important enough to you, it sticks out in your mind that you say, hey, I think I saw something to everybody in the car. And then Sarah Levinson says, what, Julie? And then you say, I don't know what it was. Let's just continue driving. The story just doesn't make you feel good. It just feels like there's something missing about that story. All right. Now, in cross-examination, he brought out that, again, Trooper Proctor did not interview her until October 2022. And when Brian Albert Sr. was taking out Chloe, that he was holding onto her collar when he took her out to the backyard. She also doesn't know how Colin Albert got home. She also said that at 12:15 she texted her brother to pick her up, and eventually they came. No idea how long it took him to get there. And then he asked her, how much did you drink that night? And got her to admit eventually. First she said, well, I drank a decent amount. And then she eventually agreed that, no, I was intoxicated. And in fact, she gave a statement saying that everybody in the car was intoxicated except for Matt McCabe, who was driving. And it kind of makes sense if you're sitting and drinking for 7 hours straight. And again, maybe not for 7 hours straight, but you're at a birthday. The mood is certainly that you're drinking. So she said that she was intoxicated, and she believes that everyone was intoxicated except Matt McCabe. So exactly what they remember, what they don't remember, what they saw, what they didn't see also is a big question. Also, he brought out that you never saw that SUV that you testified you saw move up a little bit. You never saw that car go in reverse, right? And he said, yes, she said, yes, I never saw that car go in reverse. Also, the screenshot that was the text message between her, Julie Nagel, and her brother to pick her up, no one asked for her. No one asked for that screenshot. The only person who asked for that screenshot was Jennifer McCabe. Isn't that interesting? Nobody cares about that text message? No police detective, no prosecutor. And again, she also testified that she didn't see anything on the front yard when she was walking to the car. Also, just happens to be that the first time that she ever mentioned that this object, this black object, was 5 to 6 feet long, was in front of this jury. She never mentioned that before in any report. So, some interesting points that came out in today's testimony. That will be it for the synopsis of day 11, some of my observations. Thanks for watching. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, like, and we will see you next time.